there, guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, once it warms up in here, we're going to be making some decorative candle holders. Well, I'll just give you a picture here of what it is that our final product will look like. And that way, if you don't like what you see, you can stop watching right now. No, don't stop watching right now. Keep going. And in fact, go to your wood rack and see if you can get some half-inch stock in contrasting species. So maybe like a maple and a walnut, which happens to be my favorite, or a mahogany and a poplar, but something that's contrasting. And I'm going to go over to my wood rack, do the same thing, get some half-inch material, and then I will come back and I'll see you. Well, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to head over to the table saw. And we're going to take some half-inch thick stock of our lighter color wood, whatever that was that you decided. In my case, it'll be maple. But what we're going to do is we're going to take that half-inch stock and we're going to rip it into 1¼ inch strips. We need 2 strips, 1¼ inch wide, 4 inches long. So now that you've got those half-inch pieces of maple cut, 1¼ inch wide by 4 inches long, you need the opposing or dark species. In this case, I'm using walnut, as I said earlier. And what you're going to need for that is a half-inch thick piece, 3 inches by 3 inches square. So now that you have your 3 inch by 3 inch squares of walnut cut, you can put those aside. You're going to need them a little later, but for now, put them aside. And what we're going to do is we're going to start doing some marking out on our base pieces here. And the first thing that you want to do is you want to mark a line at 1/4 inch all the way across one side of both of the base pieces. And then once you get those lines drawn, you want to come in by 1/2 inch on either side. So 1/2 inch on this side and 1/2 inch on this side. And hopefully you can see that there, but what we've done is we've ended up with this section right here, this 1/4 inch deep by 3 inch wide section, and that will be cut out as a recess later. So 1/2 inch in, we mark, 1/2 inch in, we mark, and 1/4 inch from the edge. Mark that on both of your base pieces. So you should now have 2 pieces that look like this, with these markings on them right there. 1/2 inch in and 1/4 inch along here, and then 1/2 inch in. Well, what we need to do is take one of these pieces now, and we need to mark a dado in the middle. It'll be 1/2 inch wide, and on this particular piece, or one of the 2 pieces, it will be 3/4 deep, and it will be centered in the middle of this 4 inch piece. So I'll go ahead and mark that out, and I'll show you what it is that yours should look like. So this is what you should be looking at for the one piece of your base. This is a 1/2 inch wide dado, and it's 3/4 inch down from this top edge where you drew these original lines here. This will be the cutout lines for your one piece. So now I'm going to show you what to do with your other base piece. So this is your second base piece, and at this point in time now, what we need is another 1/2 inch wide dado, but it's going to be on this side of our board. And it's going to be a 1/2 inch wide but only 1/2 of an inch up into the board. So just like the other piece, I'm going to go ahead and mark this out, and I'll show you what yours should look like as well. And there it is right there with our top recess that we marked, and now our 1/2 inch wide dado, 1/2 an inch deep into the board. Now there's all kinds of ways that you could cut this, and you may cut this dado here with your table saw. Heck, you may even cut this recess here with your table saw and a dado blade. That method is just 100% fine and probably a little more accurate, but what if you don't have a dado blade? Well, in this case, I'm going to go ahead and use the scroll saw to cut across these lines here, being our length lines, but for these lines here, I will be using just a regular crosscut blade in the table saw and miter fence. Well, at this stage in the project, you should have two pieces that look like this. You'll probably note that when I was cutting these center pieces, I used a clamp to hold it to a fence. That's pretty close proximity to my digits in the blade. But cutting these outside ones here, I was able to hold it 2 to 3 inches back over here this way and still make the cut, and I wasn't too concerned about it. But at this point, like I said, you should have two pieces, one that looks like this, and what you're going to do is take this over to the scroll saw and you're going to cut across these lines for this recess, and then another line here for this dado. And then when you finish that one, you'll take your other piece and you'll cut along this line here for the recess and this line here for this 1/2 inch deep dado. I have a number 7 reverse tooth blade installed in the scroll saw, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut through these finishing lines to complete these recesses. Well, that's one, but I'm not liking the tension on this blade, and I'm thinking it's time to possibly replace it. So let me change up this blade here, and we'll come back and continue on with cutting out these recesses. Well, you may be wondering what was wrong with that blade, and I just didn't like the way it felt. It really wasn't biting into the wood as much as I would have liked, and it just seemed to have way too much flex, and that was a problem with tension. That wasn't the blade, but that number 7 blade should have been cutting into that 1/2 inch maple way more than what it was. So it's a new blade, and you may have seen this on the show before, but when I get a new blade, I like to get a sharpening stone and just run it around the back of the blade as I'm doing here to take off that sharp corner. That will prevent that sharp corner at the back end of the blade from digging into your stock and trying to wander off of your mark lines for your cut. So there you go, tip of the day. But now that we've got that done, let's go ahead and finish cutting these recesses out. much nicer cut there for sure. You just want to make sure that you clean up in the corners as you're cutting to get a nice, even, clean cut here. So that's one done. And now I'm going to go ahead and cut the second one. And once I get this finished, I'll show you how this base goes together. So at this point you should have a piece that looks like this and another piece that looks like this if you've been following along. And this particular piece, this is the one that had the 3/4 inch deep dado. That piece will sit just like that, and this little piece sits right on top of it just like that. And from there, of course, your 3-inch square goes in the middle. Isn't that swanky? But we're not done. So get rid of that 3-inch square and let's come back to these pieces here. I think what I'd like to see here is maybe something a little more decorative, and I'd like to round these bottom corners here. So I'm going to get my circle template and I'm going to draw an arc on each one of these bottom corners. Now please pay attention when you're doing that as to which one is the bottom. Don't accidentally put it on the wrong side. I think it's quite obvious what the top is with this little 1/2 inch nib there. But I'm going to go ahead and mark this arch, cut it on the scroll saw, and then give it a sanding, and then we'll come back and show you what the finished base of this candle looks like. And there we can see the nicely rounded edge. And like I said before, the assembly is as simple as lining up your slots and putting it together. Now, from here it's up to you what you want to do with this. If you want to leave this loose like this so that you can break it down for storage, then go ahead. If you want to glue these together, glue them together. But I'll warn you, if you're going to glue them together, be sure that when you do and you clamp them, you get a square on the inside of these corners to make sure that this is going to remain square. If your joint isn't completely tight, you're going to want to make sure that these are glued together squarely so that your 3-inch block will always fit. So now that we have our base finished up, let's see what we need to do with this 3-inch square of walnut. Well, here we have our 3-inch square of 1/2 inch thick walnut. We'll just lock that in there so she's not going to move around on us. And what you want to do at this point in time is draw a line from corner to corner. It doesn't really have to be a line as long as they intersect in the middle. And you need that center line. And the reason you want that center line is because we're going to be using a Forstner bit and drilling a recessed flat hole in here, not through but halfway through. So only 1/4 inch into this block we are going to drill a Forstner bit hole. Now the size is up to you. What size candles are you going to be putting in this? Now I had originally thought that I was going to be putting tea light candles in these candle holders. But then my wife ended up pulling out this little package of candles that she had sitting around that she didn't know what she was going to do with, and that would be these little guys here. And I think they'll make a nice addition. So whether you're going to use something like this, or whether you're going to use, in this case, it just so happens to be a tea light that's inside it, measure what size of a hole you're going to need and drill a recessed hole of that size, half the thickness of your stock, so a 1/4 inch deep. And with that there is a 2-inch, in my case, Forstner bit hole drilled a 1/4 inch deep into the 1/2 inch square of walnut. Now for me, I like these sharp edges, so I'm not going to route these over, but you may want to round the top edge over. Don't route the bottom edge though, because that is how everything seats in your base. So here we have our base, and this 3x3 square of walnut just sits nicely there in your base like that. And then of course your candle sits on top. And I don't know what you guys think of this. Like I said before, you can glue this together if you want, or leave it collapsible. Do what you wish. If you want, forget about the 1/2 inch, and maybe you'd like something a little beefier. And this is a 3/4 inch piece. Maybe that's more along your lines. Maybe that's the way you like it. Maybe you'd like to go something a little thinner and do a 5/16 inch piece to make this a little more flat-lined and a little more sleek. I don't know. But either way, mix it up, guys. Mix it up, match it up, route the edges, do whatever you want to do, but go ahead and try to make one of these candles. And there you have it. Let me just show you that there. Look at that. That's pretty swanky. I think it's pretty swanky. And truth be told, a lot of this stock that I got for this, I pulled out of a kindling box that was slated to be burnt in the wood stove. So, win-win. Guys, mix it up, match it up, do whatever it is that you see best with this project. Like I said, play with the thicknesses of this top walnut piece. Maybe make the bottom out of walnut and the top out of maple. Make it all out of walnut. Mix and match. Do whatever you see fit to do with this project. Just because I do it one way, I'm not the beginning and the end of everything. That's just the way that I choose. This is your shop, your project. You do it your way. That's what it's all about, and that's what makes woodworking so versatile. Guys, I want to thank you again for watching this week. Go make yourself a candle holder, and I'm going to see you again next week with yet another woodworking video.